Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Chrism, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of our radio show, our BlogTalk radio show about the Kundalini. And first of all, I'd like to do a little bit of a sound check here. Sometimes we have some challenging sound connections, so if anybody in the chat room can let me know if that is reaching out to them. Mary Jean, I see that you're there, and C.L. Morgan, guest 1665. If anybody could type, let me know that that is coming through, and we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like Mary Jean is typing, and if the sound is fine. So hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Merry Xmas, Merry all of the different permutations that bring different levels of comfort to people. I also a happy winter solstice. This is the winter solstice day, and I'd like to let people know that we are starting the Shaktipat. And those of you who have received Shaktipat before may also feel a resonance within their Kundalini as the Shaktipat is given, as your Kundalini may respond in a way that would allow you to understand and to know that you are indeed within the winter solstice period, and that your Shaktipat has before, been given this time. There seems to be a resonance that people experience with this, and during these time periods. So welcome to everybody who has received a Shaktipat and who is in actuality receiving a Shaktipat right now. And I'd like to welcome everybody who's calling in: Rosemary, Jeannie, and I believe Joey. And C.L. Morgan, Mary Jean, Katie, and the various guests that are showing up. So hello, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and just dive right on in. There comes a time within the Kundalini awakening when people become so absorbed in their connection with the Kundalini that they begin to take out of the equation a lot of the ego work that they were doing that allowed them to get to that certain point with their Kundalini. So it's kind of a way that people begin to do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to ego work, self-correcting, charitable acts of service, kindness, changing the way you think, the patterns of thinking that you have, your judgmentalism, the way that you would cast an aspersion or not, and self-correcting through that. I'm getting noises from my computer. I don't know what the heck that means. Oh, well. Let's just hope it doesn't shut off on me or anything. But if it does, I'll be coming right back on. I was invaded yesterday on my large computer here in my room, and my Acer Tower computer has become infected with diseases, I guess. So I'm on the laptop here in the room, and so it's a little bit of a different setup for me. So if something does happen, please bear with me. As we're doing the heavy lifting with our ego and with the way we respond to life in general, and as we're embracing the changes and the transformations that need to occur. When you finally get some of the payoff from that, and that can be in the very, very short term or the very, very long term, that'll be dependent upon your karma and your practice. It's very important to understand that even though you've done some heavy lifting, the heavy lifting cannot be stopped. What can happen? And Brooke Robertson has written about this on the Kundalini Awakening exclamation group, and I've shared it to some of the other groups. Is you can be kind of stuck in a warp or a loop of thinking that, wow, Shakti's recognized me. Oh my gosh, this, and it feels so good to have that recognition, that payoff. Oh my gosh. Well, I guess I've reached my destination. There is no more work to be done. And I'd like to correct people away from that mistaken assumption. I'd like to help people understand that there will always be heavy lifting that one needs to do. There will always be levels of self-correction that one must aspire towards. You're never, as long as you have a body and you're on this world, this physical world, there's always going to be levels of self-correction, of reception of guidance, of controlling the ego, controlling the appetites, controlling the sensuous nature that we will need to do, because you got, as we all know, certainly here in the West and in Europe and other parts of the globe, increasingly, India, increasingly South America, Africa, and definitely increasing in the Asian world, China. There is a desperate urge towards the satisfaction of the sensuous body, the body that loves to consume, the pleasure body, the body that is, seeking rewards all the time at the expense almost of everything else in certain ways. And so as we have that, and as we move into these areas of greater acquisition, greater wealth, greater communication with the Shakti, you don't want to fall into that mistaken perception that because she has given you a response, the Sacred Mother, Kundalini, has given you a response, that you have indeed reached your destination. You may indeed, and certainly, have reached an area where you can be very, very happy with the work that you've done. She's giving you communication. She's giving you phenomena. She's giving you symptomology. But that is not the end of the road. And even when the Kundalini gives you, certain exalted skill sets, say levitation or clairaudience, clairsentience, telepathy, all of the different, divine gifts that the Kundalini will bring, that is not the end of the road either. Those are just tools that you use along the road. That's like having a toolkit that you walk this life with and use when the divine Kundalini gives you that urge or that compelling to use such gifts. And I want to reiterate, I also posted on that group there a nice long article by Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo, one of the Indian saints back in the 1920s. He basically writes that as you go into the Kundalini and you mature yourself within the Kundalini, the citic skills just come naturally. It's like walking or breathing for us in the not so mature Kundalini equation, and eventually, as you mature within your equation, these citic skills will come just naturally. You will not have to try to do them. They will do themselves through you. You will have telepathy. You will have clairsentience. You'll have clairaudience, things of that nature. And what I'm talking about, clairsentience is a knowingness beyond what you have studied, and understanding and comprehension, beyond books, beyond the school that you may have gone to, beyond societal programming or teaching. You just have the download come into you, and you know about certain things. Clairaudience, of course, is being able to hear disembodied frequencies of sound from, say, entities, or from some of the higher realms that are constantly sending specific frequencies into the physical realm. So yeah, a lot of different levels of special skill sets can come to a person, and those things will just get used naturally. What you don't want to do, and which I don't teach people to do, is to intentionally use them for self-gain or self-notoriety, self-aggrandizement, making yourself important in the eyes of others, or important in the eyes of yourself. So we really want to do our best to guard against those areas here as well. When you're rewarded by the Shakti with a definite presence of guidance, a presence of counsel, a presence of exalted skill sets, such as some of the ones I mentioned earlier, You don't want to stop your practice. You don't want to stop what it is you have done to get you to this point. You don't want to think that because the Divine Mother has answered you in the many specific ways that she does, that you are indeed out of the classroom, that you have graduated, and that it's time for you to put your stamp upon the world with your civic skills. And you don't really want to do that. You want to just continue in humbleness and neutrality, to continue to receive the admonitions of grace. And I'm going to read you what Brooke Robertson wrote earlier today on the Kundalini Awakening group. Because I think it's a very, very important subject that she brought up, and it bears a very specific level of attention by everybody who is in an early activation or awakening. And she says this. She says, when you do begin to have a more solid connection to the Shakti, it does not mean that you are not subject to error in your discernment of information and your interpretation of the information that is being given to you. So you can make mistakes. The Kundalini will allow you to make mistakes. And just because she has come to you, she has answered some questions for you, she's allowed you to help other people in very specific Kundalini type of ways, it doesn't mean that you're errorless in your discernment. You can make a really huge error in your discernment, especially if you're not continuing with your ego work. And she continues here. She says, if you are not in neutrality when expressing the information, you can lose the truth of what Kundalini is communicating. Being a Kundalini person can breed a very special form of megalomania in an individual. And she says, I have seen it time and time again. I've seen this with many healers or others who claim various types of connections. The person will stop off at a certain level of ego work, refusing to do the necessary levels of ego surrender, and they will literally be stuck in a loop which prohibits them from furthering their spiritual evolution. They are stuck in feeling good about their divine interpretation, but it's laced with egocentric self-aggrandizement. This is such a truth, ladies and gentlemen. And most, a lot of these folks you'll see on YouTube or you'll read on the internet, or, people have even written books. They are stuck in feeling good about their divine interpretation that is laced with egocentric self-aggrandizement. And so I really want to present to you today the idea of just continuing your humbleness, continuing your humility, continue your level of ego surrender. And she continues. She says, Today I'm being told to check in myself for these tendencies, to keep the way open for my Shakti gifts of interpretation and reception, but also to remain humble in the understanding that I am still learning, as we all are. Staying humble places one in a stance and posture of neutrality, where it isn't really about feeling good. You are in a mode of reception. But I'm also being compelled to stress the importance of this message. Don't stop off at a particular level of ego. Be willing to go all the way. Lose it all. This surrender is so essential to the Kundalini work, and it is often the first thing that is avoided. It doesn't feel good to surrender one's ideas and one's need to be right, one's pride, or one's entire life. It's very scary for people. But if we as Kundalini people do not do this, we are left with egocentrism in its own right. Okay? So, this is a wonderful opportunity for us as Kundalini people to really begin to understand where we're coming from. The road is continuing ahead of us. It is never ending. I want you to understand that. And, understand it the way Brooke Robertson understands it. I mean, writing it is one thing and doing it is another thing. And I want you all to know that you can sit there and you can read this, all day long. but until you bring it into an active state of expression, it's just black digital words on a computer screen. You have got to put the meaning into it. You have got to place it into a reality that is strong and that is successful for yourself and your Kundalini awakening equation. You can't just do the service for others. You can't just self-correct, which is this is all good, but you can't just do the work on the outer self. You have got to do the work on the inner self too, and that means the ego self. As I mentioned before, Shakti will allow you to make mistakes. You can be, you can start out being very, very discerning and very, very surrendered to the Shakti as she talks with you and gives you dream images or gives you visions or things of that nature. And you can get really caught up in that. You can get really, really, really caught up in that. And in getting caught up in that, you can begin to drift away from your humility, drifting away from your humbleness, and begin to think that, hey, I've got such a tight connection with Shakti, I don't need to do anything else. I am just so there. Oh my God, this is just that. And you don't need to do anything else. No. There's a long ways to go. There's a long ways to go. And we need to always, always, always discern not only what Shakti is saying for the benefit of others that we are giving service to, but also discern what it is that we need to do with our ego, how we are feeling, and what buttons the ego is pressing towards self-aggrandizement or self-beautification or in some cases self-beatification. It's very important for people to understand that the work is continuous. Work is continuous. And as that work is continuous, so is your discernment in yourself and what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing in response to the sacred feminine Shakti Kundalini. And don't start, wearing the crowns of laurel leaves and there's always levels of work to be done. You're never finished with this work. You reach certain high points, which is great, but the mountain goes beyond the corporeal life. The mountain extends into the clouds and pierces the veil. And so you continue this work when you're outside of the life form as well. And I really want people to begin to understand that it's critical for their development that they don't get lost in the egocentric forms of self-aggrandizement or self-indulgence because the Shakti has started to communicate with them. You can receive, fairly clear answers to any question from the Kundalini. And I mean, if you have that kind of a connection, you'll just immediately receive the download, and there you go with it. And yet, if you're not continuing to do the egocentric work, i.e., you're falling out of humility, you're falling out of humbleness, you're falling out of the work that we all need to do in balancing the ego, then you're going to get stuck in that level of where you're at right then and there. And until you get unstuck by realizing that, maybe I'm not God's gift to all humans. Maybe I'm more of a self-inflicted God's gift to myself. Maybe I need to become more humble and more restrained with my ego, more, put that ego into a greater level of training, then you're really not going to get out of that. You won't get out of that loop. You'll just stay there until, either the Kundalini gives you the realization or you come to the realization yourself. So it's very important that you consider this. Now, if you'd like to comment, and it looks like we have a new caller down there, Santara. The guest call-in number is 347-934-0026. That's 347-934-0026. And feel free to come and call in and join us in this conversation. And I see that we have some folks there in the chat room. If you have any questions there in the chat room pertaining to this subject or other subjects, I want you to feel free to chime in. And as soon as Amelia is over, I was going to segue over to her, but I'll just wait for that. Anyway, so Christmas time is a real good time to check in with your ego development. Are you feeling pressured because you're coming together with family? Family knows all the buttons to push, and so you want to look at yourself within the ego, understanding that the family may press some buttons there across the Christmas dinner table, and providing you're doing that. For a while during my Kundalini awakening experience, I just could not be around my family at all. Oh my gosh, it was just not going to happen. I tried to do that, but it just wasn't working out. Wasn't working out at all. And so I did everybody a favor, and I stayed away from the Christmas festivities. I was having a DNS, a Dark Night Soul, and I was having some really strong levels of inner work that I needed to do, and that inner work did not necessarily include people pushing buttons or doing the things that family can do so well. Because when you're telepathic and you can read the thoughts and you can see what's truthfully behind a person's mind, well, that's not the easiest thing to metabolize when you're inside of a DNS. And you certainly don't want to say anything about it because, of course, then you're labeled, in my case, the crazy uncle. So yeah. Okay, and I don't know if David is holding for a question or not, Amelia. What's going on with that? I mean, it's one thing. Oh, he's listening. Oh, okay, I see. Hi, Amelia. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Chrism. Thank you.
Oh, you got a good sound quality. Excellent. So yeah. How have you been able to put a check and balance on your ego even as you do the Kundalini work and you feel response from the Shakti Kundalini? How have you been able to further your work in the ego aggrandizement areas due to that level of connection to the Kundalini?
Well, Chrism, first of all, I suppose I do know that I haven't reached my destination, that the work is always ongoing.
That's good to know.
That, self-correction and controlling the ego is there. But it's interesting because I know that it doesn't mean I always do it, Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a fantastic thing that Brooke wrote today, and I haven't read it. I only read it the once, and I need to go back and look at it again. I suppose I've always done a practice to start with. I mean, since you became my teacher, my practice hasn't stopped ever. Even, I do it all the time. But that said, I do become lazy in some aspects. But maybe complacent might be a word that might fit more with what you're discussing here.
Yeah.
Complacent in that, well, I'm okay on that level. Like even take my diet, for example, I would become complacent in that, even though I know that this body is a temple for the Kundalini, for the divine that is within me. And so that's just one area, for example, that I have become very, very complacent in. And part of that is because, if I use that as one example, she kind of stopped slamming me, if that makes sense. So, when I would make bad choices, sometimes Kundalini can be very, very responsive to that, and instantly, and you're kind of forced into into the way she wants you to go. It's like as if there are classrooms that you're pushed into and you have no choice. And then as time moves on, I think what happens, well, what I've experienced is that, you know, she eases back and allows you to, she allows you to make mistakes and to make wrong choices and to not discern as well, maybe. And then, you know, and she can let you like that for a while. And just because something isn't being corrected, especially if it has been very much that way between the relationship with your Kundalini, it can be easier then to kind of go, oh, well, that's okay then. I'm okay there. That's obviously okay.
That's right.
When really it's not. And I'm just using there'd be other areas, you know, I'm just using the diet as an example. So, yeah, so that would be what, and then eventually other things, you know, she begins to show me in other ways, say taking again the diet and that while I might not be cramping or I might not get instant pain, there are other things that are given into the body too that maybe suggest to me, hello, you need to get back on track here, you know.
Like you know, drugs or alcohol or things of that nature, right?
Yes, well, I mean, I have made some, like say with the alcohol, within the last year, I remember one time, and I would be so disciplined typically, but no, I was after moving in, see, it's really interesting too, because sometimes when we're in a place of stress, and there's a lot going on and we're being tested, and this happens constantly with the Kundalini, in my experience anyway, and what we're invited to do at that point in time is to keep making the correct choices, you know, not to allow ego to control or to persuade us, or entity, depending on where we're at. And like, for example, last year with me, that happened. I was at a place where I was feeling quite alone. There was a lot, it doesn't matter, there was a lot of things going on. And I was at a family gathering, and there was everybody really having great fun, drinking, and, you know, so full of togetherness. And I was like somebody outside of it. Now, this is way years later in my experience. I had already passed through all of this thing. But I made the decision, the choice, I allowed my ego really to choose that I would start, and I drank alcohol that night. And that, I mean, you know, that was an amazing bad choice that I made. Very, very bad, you know. It wasn't good for me at all. And so, yeah, and I mean, that's, you're laughing, stop. But that was a classroom there that I got a big, you know, fail there.
Well, I mean, did you get a fail, or did you just get a level of teaching towards just self-correction? I mean, it just kind of goes along with what I've been talking about. We're never finished with the work, you know, and Shakti will allow you to make mistakes. I mean, you know, she allows you to have that huge bottle of tequila, you know, during that family gathering. And I mean, people in your family wrote to me and said she wasn't going to share the tequila bottle with anybody. She was just kidding.
Yeah, I know you are. But I was, and also being humble, you know, when you were singing. I don't know if this song. There was a song out a few years ago called "Being Humble" is so important. I mean, you know, and it's an interesting topic, because how can are you being humble when you talk about being humble? So there was this song, and it was, oh Lord, it's so hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. And I just thought, yeah, Yeah, with what Brooke was speaking about too, that's tied into, I think, when people get, focused on how wonderful or how good their situation is, and begin to self-aggrandize, they do feel, perfect in every way.
Well,
Anyway,
they do, man. You get it's a huge reward to have the Shakti come to you, and you see a vision, or you hear a voice, or you get a downloaded instruction of intuition about a situation or a person, and you're able to start helping other people, using those civic skills, those exalted gifts, and that can really begin to wear away the levels of humility and humbleness that a person can have. And until you reach a point, now you will reach a point, at least, I have reached a point where when I'm helping a person or I'm interacting with a Kundalini person or giving a seminar, I become very detached from who I am and how I am. I become very detached from the civic skills that come. I'm very detached, and the Shakti in me supports that detachment. It's a strong level of neutrality. And as I was giving Shaktipat last night for the first chakra, same thing happens. The less my ego is involved, the more gets done. So, I look at each person through the scatter fields that I give, and I go, well, how's their practice going? And I look at that, and I am not allowed to go into judgment. Matter of fact, in many ways, she will not even let me look, because it's not about me and my ego knowing how they're doing their practice. Shakti knows how they're doing their practice.
Yeah.
So it's, I've had this for a very long time.
That's a great example.
Yeah. The more my ego is inserted into the deal, the less gets done. The less ego, more gets done. And I think this kind of goes across the board with a lot of other people's equations as well. The more you trust and the more you give your egocentrism to the Kundalini, i.e. you give your humility to the Kundalini, you give your humbleness to the Kundalini, you give what levels of self-aggrandizement you might be feeling because of your communication with the Shakti. You give that back to the Shakti, and you continue with your humbleness and the work that you're doing. And you subtract the hubris of what you think you know and what you think you can do, and what what your ego thinks is, you're such a great, exalted, awakened person now. I love it when people say, I am fully awakened. Whoops. Some stuff just fell right off the table. I didn't do that. Oh, well.
I heard it.
I think everybody heard it. I am fully awakened, they say, and I say, oh, okay, well, no ego there, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that comes to me as we're talking, Amelia, is how people expect to be treated. Where is the egocentrism in how people expect to be treated? Are you the kind of person that'll stand next to that door until somebody opens it for you? I'm not going to lower myself to open that door. Somebody else must open it for me because I am the Lord God, whatever, right? People have a lot of egocentrism wrapped up in how they feel they should be treated. What is appropriate? What is inappropriate? What is what is going on with that? I think people also need to look into their expectations of appropriate treatment, and look at it through the eyes of the Kundalini, not the eyes of your societal programming. I'm a man, and so in the eyes of societal programming, I should hold the door open for that woman. I should actually open the door for that woman. And if I was living, 200 years ago, and that woman encountered a puddle in the road, I was to throw my jacket or my body over that puddle so she wouldn't get her feet wet. These are levels of societal programming that the Shakti doesn't necessarily agree with. These are things that are designed to aggrandize a gender or aggrandize, a gender in this case, but also, to aggrandize others at the expense of their comfort or things of level. And I'm not saying don't be polite with people. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't be, kind and considerate and helpful. But what I am saying is to really look at what you expect and how you expect others to treat you, certainly during like the festivities of this time of year. If you give somebody a gift, wow, they better be giving you a gift right on back.
That's what I'm thinking of as you're talking. Because that's so true, though, isn't it? I mean, people's expectations and exchange. So a person can be really amazing, say, in the service that they do and what they give, and yet when they don't receive something back, they become upset by that, because they had an expectation that maybe they didn't even know about. I know that would have been my experience,
Oh, it would have been my experience, certainly as a child. As a child, you really, because you're really taught to if you give a gift, then you're supposed to receive a gift, right? That's the programming. And that childish expectation can mature with a person as they grow older, in their adult bodies. And so, did you have another example you wanted to say? Did I interrupt you?
No, Chrism. No, go ahead.
And so, I think this. Oh. Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking of children as well. I mean, it just came to me that, we have, and this is just one example. This is just as an example. So we have children, and you'd often hear people saying, I've heard parents saying anyway down the road when their children are older, and after all I did for them, and the point is, that isn't why you had children. They had an expectation. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't have children, but I have Lasha. Of course, that's a little different because, of course, it's all about Lasha.
But you hear people saying that, though, Chrism. After all I did for them, look what they've done. Yeah. And I suppose
after all I did for Lasha, and then she just bit and scratched me. Oh my word!
That's the get out clause. But yeah, that's an example too. I mean, seriously, we can be upset if
absolutely. And so
because we sacrifice.
Go ahead. We sacrifice.
Yeah, so sacrifice. There you go. When we sacrifice, we may, have an awareness or not an awareness that we have some expectations, some payback that we might want for that sacrifice.
Right. Exactly. And, this goes right back to, the primary topic is, when you have that gift of communication with the Shakti, in a way, she's giving you a gift and testing you with a gift at the same time. She's testing you with the gift of her presence and communication in your life with your level of egocentric control, with your level of humility, your level of humbleness. It's so very important for people not to get stuck in the feeling of being exalted by virtue of having strong Kundalini communication. It's just, and people will put you up on that platform as well. People will push you up on the platform of being, a great and powerful guru or teacher, or this highly evolved spiritual soul, because you're giving really, in many ways you're giving really good communication about whatever their issue is from your Kundalini. And yet, is that the end of the road for you? Well, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. As a matter of fact, as the communication with the Shakti increases, so must your humility increase. so must your mindfulness towards your humbleness increase. So must your service increase. So must your, the way you look at your actions, the way you look at your thoughts, the way you look at and feel your emotions. The observance of who you are, how you are, what you are, why you are, where you are must increase along the lines of humility. You can't allow the Kundalini to give you that gift of communication and then just stop your practice, stop the essential platform of expression that brought you to that Kundalini gift, to that communication. It's essential that you do this. And, during Christmas, and we're talking about gifts and having these expectations, you need to really, really, really watch that expectation. Just because you have the gift of the communication with the Shakti right now does not mean she just won't turn around and walk away from you and leave you flat-footed on a plateau of non-communication the very next day or the very next hour. She will do this.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of notes from people, private emails and whatnot, and it's like, dear Master Chrism, what, I was doing really well. I had this great communication with the Shakti. I was like doing all these practices, and it was like 3 hours of meditation a day, and I was doing service for people, and that felt so good. And then the next day, there's nothing. WTF? And she'll just walk away. She'll just walk away. And, I can't say unless you do the work, because sometimes she'll just walk away to test you, to test your confidence and your faith and your trust. But she'll also walk away to help you break out of a loop of self-aggrandizement through Shakti communication. We are susceptible if we are not doing the work on our inner hubris. Any comments about that, Santara?
No, I mean, yes. It sounds really good, Chrism. The inner hubris, I love that word. It describes so well. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I remember one time writing to you, gosh, I'm going back a long time now, and saying, why is the Kundalini angry with me? She's, stopped. Yeah. And you said, I remember you explained it really well to me at the time. You said, I'm trying to recall now, but you said, a mother will allow her, will hold her child by the hands, and as she's taking the steps, so the mother is holding the baby's hands, and the baby is going forward and stepping, and then the mother will take her hands away and allow the baby on its own, but the mother is still there. But you're on your own. She's left you. That's how it feels, but she hasn't,
Yes.
And that helped me at the time.
But the baby, to the baby, that's not so true, because the baby doesn't realize, because of their lack of experience and lack of reference point, that the mother's still there. Exactly. They're not so adept at tuning around. Maybe mom left the baby for the first time in an empty room or a playroom or whatever, and after having all of this attention and all of this love and all of this, attention and love, to be left alone all of a sudden.
Devastating. It's devastating.
Yeah, totally.
It's like,
totally. And the Shakti will do this. She will do this. I don't know. My equation is a little different with that, because I've always, my whole life, since I was a baby, I've had this stuff going on. From another life, I came in with this Kunalini, in an activated and partially awakened state. And so I would see the entities, and I at the time I didn't know what the heck was going on. I thought everybody saw this stuff, and everybody experienced these things. And so even though she was there, for me as a child, she was not there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was alone listening to howler monkeys in the middle of Woodland, California, wondering, WTF is that, Mom? Oh, it's the heater, my son. It's like, no, it's not the heater. The heater does not howl like a monkey, Mom. Then it's just your imagination. Don't ask me again.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a parent of a Kundalini child, let me tell you. Yes.
Well, I used to have the spiders as a child. I was talking with my dad today, and he was remembering how I used to come racing out, and I remember it well, racing out of my room, and the spiders were chasing me, Chrism. And I'd pass my father in the hall screaming, and he'd be in the bedroom going, where are you? And I'd be up at the front door. But, yeah, because they're real, you know, they were real.
Oh, yeah. Not only
I mean,
you can see every little micro hair on them.
Yes. It was the big joke in my house, Amelia and her spiders. But anyway,
yeah. Well, a lot of people have that arachnophobia.
Say again.
Oh, I say a lot of people have the arachnophobia. And speaking of a person who does not have the arachnophobia, I'm going to come right over here to Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Chrism. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yeah, happy solstice to you.
Thank you.
So do you have an idea what we're talking about here?
I just got home from work, so I'm trying to catch up real quick, but I think I have a pretty good idea. And I had read Brooke's post right when I got home. I read that, and then I turned this on, and it seems to kind of be connected, the communication.
I actually read her post on the air here.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah. So you're right on target.
And yes, I know what we're talking about.
And you know, what does Lorania have to say about that? And just for those who are new listening, Lorania is Spanish for the spider, and in this case, this would be the sacred spider that Elizabeth's Kundalini symbolizes for her. And so what does she have to say about this, Elizabeth?
That you never take the communication for granted, that when it comes, you pay attention and you're aware, and you search if she wants you to for whatever, and that, it will come, it will go, it can stop for a time, and if you're not doing your work and you're not doing devotion and you're not being aware, then I can see why it would stop, because they're not getting your attention. And so they're going to just let you be for a while and then maybe do something to get your attention. And then that communication may not be as gentle of a communication. You know, you might fall smack on your face, or you might something to wake you up, something to bring you back to the awareness of the communication that's being given. And last night, I had a dream. It was someone said, or it wasn't even actually a voice, but in the dream I was lucid, and I heard or telepathically felt that it said, "Are you Shakti?" And I thought, what? And it said it again, "Are you Shakti?" And then I saw a piece of paper, and it said SATI, Shakti. And I thought, okay. So I went, and immediately I woke up, and I forgot about the dream. And then later in the kitchen that morning, all of a sudden I started having bliss, and the same feeling that was in the dream at the second the communication came to me, and I thought, okay. And I was having trouble trying to figure out, why is she asking me, "Are you Shakti?" And she wasn't giving me a download. She wasn't just instantly I guess this is my point, is the communication. She wasn't going to just say, okay, and this is what all that meant. She wanted me to think about it. She wanted me to talk about it. I actually talked about it with Brooke because she was online, and she had a wonderful piece of wisdom that I didn't know, that the Sanskrit word for awareness is sati, spelled the way it was spelled in the dream, S-A-T-I. So then it started me thinking on a whole new thread of, okay, so she wants me
because
to bring awareness.
The assumption is being made that she's speaking Sanskrit to a non-Sanskrit speaking person.
Well, but she knows that I normally know. I don't know. But then, on the way to work, boom, had a download. The download said, every single action you take, I want you to ask yourself, are you Shakti? In other words, are you practicing the noble behaviors? Is the action you're about, and this, she says this to me in a million different ways. Clearly, I'm still not completely doing it or getting it, but she's telling me again in another way to bring more awareness to my actions, to every single thing I say, every single thing I do. Still haven't dropped. To me, it makes me feel like I still haven't dropped all my old patterns. I still have clearly a lot of work to do. But I think that Brooke and the download, if you put those two together, it's like, bringing your awareness and bringing your attention to the communication, and to then every single thing you do, you're looking for, not for communication necessarily, but for, are you practicing the noble behaviors? Are you about to do an action? Would you? And she even said, what would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? What would a saint do? And are you doing that, or are you doing something different? And if you are doing something different, then change, self-correct, change that.
Excellent. It's exactly right. And boy, did you get a good discernment, I think, on that dream. What an excellent experience. And it's something that I feel that every Kundalini person should listen to this advice. Everybody. I don't care if you're Yogananda, Ramakrishna, Sri Aurobindo, anybody who has the Kundalini, Sri Rosemary, Sri Amelia, anybody that has the Kundalini can really listen to this and ask themselves that very same question, especially now during the holidays, when the pressure is kind of like on to interact with people in specific ways. Is this something the Shakti would have you do? Are you expressing a noble behavior? Are you doing the activities that nourish and facilitate the Kundalini's transformation of you, of your personality? And from your personality, your psychology, and from your psychology to your physiology, and from your physiology to your spirituality. I mean, it is an extremely important subject that we're talking about right now, and I really appreciate you sharing your dream, Elizabeth. That was quite a dream you have.
Yeah, and yet so simple. It was so short.
Well, you see it on the bumper sticker, right? What would Jesus do? What would Buddha do? These types of things. And it's inserted into the programming of our society, certainly here in the United States, and I think also in Europe and other places. But, is it acted on? And, especially for Kundalini people, because these people are verging on sainthood. They are in the classroom of what it is to be a saint. And, what it is to be a saint is not necessarily sitting on your rear end with your that great communication, the person would have with Shakti, and not furthering the work, not doing, asking the question, is this something Shakti would do? Is this a noble behavior? Is it something Jesus would do, or Buddha would do, or any religious symbol, personage who represents the noble qualities. So, beautiful, beautiful work, Elizabeth. And how's that going for you?
Well, It went pretty well because I was at work. It was super busy, and I maintained not to yell at anybody. Not that I normally do, but I'm just saying. I was very kind. I was very courteous.
Oh, good. Oh, right
but
on.
She
right
also
on.
she said something about not even meaning to, as Kunalini people, we get lazy, and it's not even lazy. It's we get in, we do things automatically because we get up every day. There's always we get up in the morning, we do certain behaviors, we do certain patterns, and so I think too, it's to shake yourself out of some of those patterns or become more aware of every little thing. You're brushing your teeth, we're kind of on automatic. We're not really paying attention. It's because it's something we do every day. So she's just saying, again, which she's told me this a million times, but once again, bring awareness to every single automatic thing that you do, as well as the things that are where you're using a noble behavior, but also the things that we tend to be we walk around a little bit unconscious, if you will, not really paying attention because we're doing things that we do every single day and we're just doing it automatically without thinking about what we're doing because we've done it so many times.
Getting lost in the program of it.
Yeah.
Not being mindful, which I think sati also represents to the quality of mindfulness.
Ooh. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so wow, it's really a powerful statement and a powerful communication from Brooke and her Kundalini as well. And I definitely want to give her, kudos for that. And so, and we want to be careful if we don't understand what the Shakti is giving us. We don't want to try to make a judgment about the Shakti or to kind of form an egocentric response to the Shakti. I know this can happen for people when they don't understand what the symbolism is. Like, seeing a woman in a red dress walk by, say, oh, well, she must be a prostitute, or oh, that must mean that I'm going to be bleeding, or whatever red means to a person. Well, the person out within an early stage of Kundalini symbolism understanding would not know that red is definitely a presence of sacred feminine. Same with the spider, same with the serpents. The woman in red. And Elizabeth, you are a woman in red right now.
And I best behave like one.
Well, it's a good lesson to ask that question. It's a good lesson, my dear. Thank you for sharing it.
Yep.
Putting it in the Shiva Blue.
Thank you.
And coming back up here to Amelia, I can only if I bring more than one person into the microphone at a time, it tends to start breaking up and getting fuzzy, and so I have to kind of put people in the blue and do it one at a time. And what is your response to that, Santara?
Wonderful. Fantastic. I really liked listening to that, and I resonate with it very much, Chrism.
Okay.
The end.
Yeah, put it back in the blue, and I'm going to come over to our Mother Superior of the Kundalini, person who has been a Catholic saint and sister for about 25 years, quarter of a century. And let's see what St. Rosemary's take is on this. Hi, St. Rosemary.
Hello there, St. Chrism.
Happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
What are you receiving from this conversation?
Well, I was listening, particularly when the simple things that Elizabeth was talking about, to see that red dress or see something, to be a constant reminder of connecting would be my words, connecting inwardly to the presence within me, and to keep doing that. And there's something that you wrote some time ago and it reminded me of learning in the community of sisters something called remembering the presence of God. And that was a good practice, but it wasn't quite to this degree because it was like out there around us. It's a little different than the presence within us.
Right,
And
right. Which is the typical, major belief system outlook is it's what's out there, not what's in here, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you very much. And, happy holidays to you in this beautiful time of the year.
Yes, thank you.
And moving on, and I'd like to talk with Joey here, if Joey's listening. And it looks like it's taken me a while to get her on the microphone. Hello, Joey, are you there?
Oh, I'm here.
Hey, Joey. Happy holidays to you, too.
Oh, thank you, and to you.
I hear it's a balmy 95 in Minnesota right now. Is that right?
Well, it is balmy. It's above freezing. For this time of the year, that is balmy.
What are your thoughts about this conversation that we're having?
Oh, I completely agree with it. Of course, and I've been thinking about it that I'm becoming more aware, but my lordy, there's still plenty of room for more.
Oh boy, isn't that the truth for all of us?
So it's always a good reminder and wonderful dreams and experiences that everyone has shared.
Definitely a nice teaching to ask yourself: is this what? Am I being Shakti? Am I responding in a way that the Shakti Kundalini would respond with regards to the noble behaviors towards this situation, whatever that situation might be?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hear your clock is going off there. I love that clock. All right. I will go ahead and put you in the blue, my dear. And I'm going to come back up here to Her Holiness Santara. And Santara, do we have questions for the program today?
We do, Chrism. Here they are. Not too many, but there are a few. Actually, one of them is, what is the ego, and why do we have it if we don't need it?
So you're asking me that question? Okay. The ego is the survival. It's the survival self. It's the self that is developed through the experiences on the physical plane in the early part of the life, i.e., the childhood. It is the psychology of survival, the psychology of competition, the psychology of acquisition, the psychology of self-determination. All of those psychologies coalesce into a form of understanding and an expressive force that we call the ego that really helps us to survive in this society, especially say, you're in a public school situation where, all these little egos come together and you're figuring out how to make your way in the world. And in a way, you're losing your innocence. By gaining the ego, you lose your innocence when you're a kid. If you look at like a 2-year-old won't have any problem going naked around anybody, right? Whereas a 5-year-old would have an extreme level of issue going around naked in front of people. Am I right with that, Santara?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, and so as we continue our maturation within the ego development, the ability to say no to mommy and daddy, or I want that, the forceful development of self-awareness and self-validation in many ways is what the ego is. And it is not our enemy. It is an integral part of ourself that we just need to retrain. We need to self-correct. And I've mentioned it before, I really look into the Huna practices, and it's not the traditional Huna that Polynesians practice. I'm finding out it's a different form of Huna where you have the ego self, you have the higher mental functioning self, and then you have the Amakua or the Kundalini self. the exalted self. And it's the ego self wants to become a higher functioning mental self. The higher functioning mental self wants to become the Amakur, the two that are one, the one that is two, the Kundalini. And so there's a definite triple evolution that is taking place within each person. And this holds true for my Kundalini. She's really, she really pushes it. And so when you're inside of an egocentric mannerism or an egocentric mode of expression, as you self-correct that egocentric expression towards a more noble quality, say of sharing, or say of not being so competitive, or not it's not all about you all the time, that type of a thing, being right all the time, or being satisfied all the time, or being pleasured all the time, these types of things. You allow that ego person to evolve, that little self within you, the little I, to evolve, closer and closer and closer towards a higher functioning mental self. And as the mental self is training that ego, so is the Kundalini training that higher mental functioning self to become closer to its expression of the divine quality upon this world. So it's a very, very, very logical possession, which is unusual for Kundalini. But yeah. So the ego is that first self, that look at me, mommy self. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. The next question, is it okay to be seeing faintly images walking around my house while awake?
Well, we're assuming that this person has a Kundalini activation, and I know he does. And so within the Kundalini parameters, yes, it is absolutely normal to see flimsy types of shapes. They're not always humanoid. It can be just kind of like a luminescent ball of energy, or kind of like maybe a sheet. If you look at the little Halloween costumes, people cutting holes in the eyes of a sheet and running around town going trick or treat. That's not such an incorrect image. I have seen that very same thing, and it does have a less of a humanoid shape and more of a shape of a centralized luminescent area with luminescent streamers going behind it in some cases. And in some cases it does definitely have a humanoid properties, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head. And it is quite normal for a person to begin to see that as their Kundalini is developing them. As you go through the transformation, well, one of those sacred gifts is to be able to see spirit, see disembodied spirit. And this can lead you into seeing entities, or seeing elves, or seeing dwarves, or seeing any of these other things that exist on the other side of the veil, but can penetrate the veil into the 5 sense physical expression. So yes, it is quite normal. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. I'm still having a hard time discerning where the voice, thoughts, feelings are coming from. At times it sounded like a voice of reason, other times it's like an entity who knows me fully. It sympathizes, but then it goads as well. Entity or ego? Can you actually converse with the ego like you would with a person in front of you? Sorry, but I'm feeling confused.
Conversing with a discarnate entity is very much like conversing with an ego. A discarnate entity can be the spirit of an individual who has not progressed upon their spiritual path. They're still stuck in their ego. And because they're stuck in their ego, they're also stuck on the lower planes of spiritual expression, which means that as the higher physical intersects with the lower spiritual, or the lower astral, there's a Vasika Pisces that will form where you would be able to experience communication with a person that has not become more spiritually evolved. There's that scenario. And another scenario, of course, is where, it is an entity that you're talking with, period. It's an entity that is just disguising itself as some, integral part of you and doing its very best to begin to corrupt you from the inside out, being argumentative, being condemnative, being a real problem with your defining your self-worth and with your defining your self-validation. And as you continue through the Kundalini education, this entity will do its very best to pull you back, to set you back, and to do everything that it can do, which is its job. Its job is to do everything it can do to distract you away from being successful on this path, or following this path in a way that is evolutionary to you. And so, that can be definitely an entity. And of course, the entities will always tie in to the person's ego. That's one of the handles that those entities use, is to attach themselves to the egocentric thought formations that an individual has, and then allow that individual to become confused, like suffering the consequences of that attachment would be hearing one voice, and having that personality or that spiritual presence coerce the egocentric voice, the sensuous body, into responding or feeling a certain way. And then giving the individual the feeling that, well, is that the ego or is that an entity? What is it? And I'm going to suggest that you just don't even bother trying to discern that. You just don't do or listen to what is being told to you. If you do not see if you're not hearing this from a living person, then you're hearing it from an entity. And if you're hearing it from an entity and you have the Kundalini, typically they're there to corrupt you on your Kundalini path. They're to test you, to corrupt you, test you with corruption, test you with confusion, anything that they can do to limit your awareness, to limit your self-confidence, to limit your trust in the Shakti. And so just don't listen to them. In some ways, you can't help but to hear them, but you don't need to acknowledge and you don't need to act on anything that is said. Over.
Yeah, Chrism, I think that's hugely important. I mean, I would have found that if you spend time trying to discern, it's not good to spend time trying to discern if it's ego or entity. It doesn't matter which. You respond by doing the opposite anyway. Wouldn't that be a response you would take?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no. Even doing the reversal is in some ways an acknowledgement of the presence, because I save the reversals for some of the more serious things that are happening to the individual. This is just a level of disinterest that I'm helping a person to want to come into. This is a level of ignoring the temptation to be corrupted. To go into that conversation with the entity or an ego infused, or an entity infused ego, is to really begin to give attention to that personality. And the less attention that you give to the entity trying to infuse itself into your ego, the better off you will always be. And no matter what is being said, no matter what is being promised, no matter what level of wisdom or level of truth that it may push towards you, you ignore it completely. You do not act on it. You just begin to form an attention wall between yourself and that entity, and you'll see that the positive results. Well, typically the entity will start screaming at you then, or cussing at you, or doing whatever it can do to punish you for not giving it the attention that it craves. And then you really know. Then it's basically given away the situation. Right. So then for a fact there's no more confusion. I've got this entity in me, and I'm just going to do everything I can do to ignore its presence and to not feed it food of attentiveness. Over.
Can I just stay with that a little while longer? Attentiveness, though, would not be, I mean, if something is happening like that and it is very extreme, to go into devotion or to turn to the Kundalini in that way is not giving it attention.
If it's just, if it's starting to move beyond the presence of a voice that's attaching to the ego, if it's getting into more corruptive practices, more frightening type of practices, then you would go into devotion. Then you do the crucible of reversal. You could definitely go in there. Then you take a picture of the teacher and you do your devotion to the Kundalini and your teacher, and you allow the presence of your teacher to really begin to help you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chrism. The next question, the first part was, does Kundalini ever really end? And you answered that already in the show. And the second part is, do you feel it is a choice to continue with it or not?
Well, just to say, do we have a caller that has not been addressed here?
Oh, let me have a check, Chrism. No, I think I'll go check. I think that's Jeannie having been bumped off again, is it? Would you recognize the number?
I recognize the area code.
Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good,
yeah,
very good.
She gets bumped off often.
Okay, right. So what's the question again, my dear?
I'm flying back to where I was. So the question is, do you feel with Kundalini that there is a choice to continue or not?
No. Once you have Kundalini, that light switch does not ever go off. You have it. It's just like, once you start, let me find a good analogy here. Once you enter puberty never goes away. It just continues its march through your glandular system and through the many systems of the body that the puberty affects, and it continues going. And it will not naturally disengage itself. People can interrupt it, but people really can't interrupt Kundalini. They can interrupt the body. They can drug the body to stupefaction, but the Kundalini will still be it'll still make development. It will still have its presence within the body, but the body may not be able or willing to express it. And so nothing turns the Kundalini off except the Kundalini. But people can interrupt. They can, as I said earlier, Shakti will allow you to make mistakes. So you can learn from those mistakes. And for some people, that's a lifelong learning. For others, it's a learning, like what Elizabeth experienced or what Brooke was downloaded, today or whenever she wrote that stuff. So it's, you don't get a choice. That once Kundalini is there, it's there. The light switches on. Enlightenment is happening to whatever huge, large degree or for whatever small, tiny, micro degree. But it is happening. Over.
The next question, Chrism, I'm just reading it, and you can see if you've already addressed it enough. There was a quote, and it said, "Light without an ego is difficult to think of because the thinker is the ego." Do you want to comment on that, or?
Oh yeah. This is what's his name's post. I don't agree with that. As I mentioned before, within the Huna context, you have basically 4 different personalities that make up a human being. You have the little I or the ego self. You have the larger I or the higher mental functioning self. And then you have the sacred male and the sacred feminine, which become one. So just because the ego may be thinking something doesn't mean the higher mental functioning self is thinking the same thing. If the person is inside of a level of discernment about who they are, how they are, what they are, why they are, and they're practicing sati, as Elizabeth's dream suggested, mindfulness and awareness. they're not necessarily thinking the same thoughts that the ego is thinking. Now, the body being the expressive vehicle for these 4 levels of psychology, the body may feel that anger or that revenge or that, passionate desire, whatever that egocentric thought or activity would be feeling, but the higher mental functioning self doesn't necessarily need to buy into it. That's the choice that we have. We can choose to partake of the desires and the attachments of the sensuous ego self, or not. And then I wrote him to that. I said, this is not a standard rule for everybody. Higher mental functioning self has choice in whether or not it wishes to partake of what the ego body is presenting to it. And as does the Kundalini. The Kundalini doesn't necessarily... I just have to turn this all down here. Sorry about that noise. The Kundalini wouldn't necessarily partake of anything that the ego would be presenting. The Kundalini's sitting there going, "Oh, okay, let's see what the higher mental functioning self, or the F, or the HFS is doing." We'll use HFS. And being able to either guide or allow, whatever the karma of the individual needs or the guidance of the individual needs. So no, the ego is not the person that is watching the ego. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. There was a question. It's too long to. Okay, so there was a lady on the group whose daughter had died a few years ago, 3 years ago, from epilepsy, and she was asking your opinion or your experience about the possible misdiagnosis of epilepsy in connection with spontaneous activation of Kundalini. Could you speak on that, please?
Yeah, doctors don't really understand anything about epilepsy except that it causes waves of electrical disturbance along the neurological pathways of the brain. They don't know what stimulates it. They know they can dumb it down with certain types of drugs. Some of those, which are actually what used to be called smart drugs, I forget which the one I'm thinking of is though. In many cases, a person can be having Kundalini and epilepsy at the same time. There's a lot of karma behind this. This is not, epilepsy is not happening accidentally to a person. Kundalini is not happening accidentally to an individual either. And so as the physician tries to figure out what is going on, well, they're left completely out, because they don't really believe in spiritual energetic anatomies. They don't believe, they're not taught that in their med school. And so they typically want to believe what they were taught in med school and what the textbook represents. And none of the textbook represent anything that the Kundalini person is going through. They assign that to bipolarism or schizophrenia and things of that nature. And then once again, their response to that is a chemical response, putting a person in a chemical cage. And the same thing happens with the people that are having epilepsy. Epilepsy, they should let the person convulse, not necessarily bite their tongue. Stick that tongue protector in there. Put that in there, because they will clench down very strongly with the jaw. So definitely protect that. But you may need to let them have those seizures. It's very difficult for a parent of a child that is having epilepsy for the parent to watch that child go into seizure. Grand mal seizures are really, really, they look horrendous. Very similar ways does a Kundalini Kriya look horrendous to a person that's not having them or who's not educated about them. So, not schizophrenia, but epilepsy can mimic some of the experiences that a Kundalini person will have. And this is why I know that you can have them both at the same time. It doesn't mean that you will survive the medical procedures or the chemical treatments that the medical practitioner will want to put into the person to try to control the response. They want to control the seizures. You know, they have anti-seizure medication, you know, that they will insert into the individual. And the parents will go along with that because they just really hate to see what looks to be a painful experience happen to that child. I've personally held people in public that have fallen down having grand mal seizures. I've held their head and made sure they weren't biting on their tongue and things like that. And I felt the energetic flow go through them, and it's very, very, very similar to some of the experiences that a person having Kriyas will have. And they're totally gone. They're unconscious with it, and you'd have to be unconscious with some of the grand mal seizures that I've observed firsthand. And I would let them have the seizure. Do the protections, as I mentioned before, but don't necessarily fill them with these types of anti-seizure medications. That may not be what the Kundalini in them wants to have done, and they may be able to come out of it later on by virtue of bringing an awareness of Kundalini into that person's family and into that person's awareness. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. What are Kundalini ethics?
The noble qualities of forgiveness and temperance and tolerance and patience and trust and love and sincerity and gratitude. Living the truth of honesty and joyful service, selfless service, non-self-aggrandizement expressing through you. These are the noble qualities. And you start out, that's a big, big, big handful that I just passed out. I mean, start out with just forgiveness. And then add a little gratitude to that forgiveness of everybody in your life, everybody that you meet on a daily level, especially if you're a person that deals with the general public, like, say, Elizabeth. You know, she works in a bookstore, so she's dealing with the general public, you know, all the time. And so this is a great opportunity for a person to practice forgiveness, because the general public, you know, always can be a bit challenging at times, I guess, to put it lightly. I've worked with the general public quite a bit. And, you know, people are generally nice, I feel. At least my experience with them is. But, you know, about 40% of them aren't. And, you know, they're bringing a problem that they're experiencing, or an issue that they're experiencing, or an egocentrism that they're experiencing, you know, into your world of appreciation. And so to practice the noble qualities is to be able to handle that type of a interaction without falling into revenge, without falling into anger, without falling into hurt, without falling into defensive positions or competitive positions and things of that nature, and to really be able to reach inside and embrace the love for all creation that the Kundalini definitely brings us into. And to actively express these qualities is what the noble behaviors are. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Could you discuss that Kundalini is not sorcery? Could you say something about that?
Yeah, well, Kundalini isn't sorcery. Sorcery is something that is really, you know, promulgated by the ego. You know, the ego says, "Oh my God, you know, I just want to feel the power. I just want to, you know, I want that orange to float over to me so I don't have to get up and grasp it. I just want it to float through the air, just land in my hand, and then I just want to be able to peel that orange with my mind, you know." And you know, convert. Oh gosh, she's so beautiful. I just, oh my God, I just feel so insecure. I can't go up and ask her out on a date, but I can do a love spell. Yes, I'll just take away her choice. I'll just manipulate her in such and such a way so that she finds me absolutely irresistible and will have no choice but to come here and be everything that I want her to be. And this is an abrogation of the noble qualities that I just described. This is ego with rocket fuel. And sorcery is basically ego with rocket fuel. You know, if you're doing sorcery or witchcraft or things like that upon a person, you're basically taking away levels of choice that person deserves to have left intact. You don't want to commit sorcery on people or sorcery on things. You know, if you have the ability to, like I was given really, really strong coercive abilities, and I remember sitting in a bar with a woman, and we were talking about psychic subjects, and we started talking about life force and having, you know, being able to manipulate the life force of another person, and she says, you know, I'd be open to having, if you think you can manipulate my life force as we sit here in a bar, you know, I'd be willing to have you, you know, give that a try on me. And I'd never done it before, but I thought, well, hey, okay, sure, what the heck? So I created the scenario on her, and it worked. And she fainted. She had a micro faint. She had like a seizure. And she came back immediately, and I immediately stopped. And she said, "Don't you ever do that to me again." Okay. This can tell you how unfortunate certain kinds of sorcery can be for people. You need to go, you know, even the sorcerers of old, like, what's his name, the mage, whatever his name is, so-and-so the mage, you know, he even said that, you know, you've got to, in order to do this safely, you have to be pure of heart. Because when you're doing sorcery, you're dealing with a direct blending of lower astral activities within a physical, egocentric environment. And you know, 90% of the time, that is a recipe for disaster for the individual. Though there's a few people. You know, what's his name, the mage, you know, he was successful with it. He could do things like that. But he kept his heart pure. He wasn't out to rob people. He wasn't trying to use coercion as a way of having an edge over other people. He wasn't trying to dominate other people. You know, he was a healer. He was a healer, and he was a helpful individual, and you know, he practiced his mage work in the 14th, 15th century. His name is Abremelin the Mage, and M-A-G-E. And if you can find his work, you'll find that he basically says over and over and over, don't do this unless you've got a pure heart. Don't do this unless you have a pure heart, because it will destroy you. And so, you know, we got these movies coming out, like, what was that movie? Doctor Strange, is that what it was?
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and so we have, you know, and we see a perfect example of sorcery and how it's all about fighting. And you basically take, you know, your egocentric desires and wishes, and you bring them into a higher level of expression. Not a higher good level of expression, but a higher level of malevolent expression. You start attaching, you know, sacred skill sets like telepathy and telekinesis and levitation and things of that nature, you know, interdimensional travel, time travel, things of that nature, into an exalted format, which can destroy you, absolutely destroy you. And we're showing this to kids. Now all the kids want to be Doctor Strange. And if you saw the first part of the movie, where he's this huge egocentric individual, you know, you see that not much has changed after he has come into his gifts. You know, he's still fighting. He's still changing time. He's still doing these things in order to protect his own ideas and ideologies and belief systems. And so sorcery is not Kundalini. Kundalini goes way beyond sorcery. Kundalini goes into divinity, which sorcery cannot even approach. Okay, sorcery, once again, is a level of egocentrism with rocket fuel. Okay, kind of like a Donald Trump with sacred skill sets. There you have it. I'll stop right there.
Okay.
Over.
Okay. Thanks, Chrism. So, can you speak your opinion on, banishment commands with regard to entities?
Okay,
What's
all
your
right.
teaching on that?
The teaching on that is, the guy came on the group and he says, yes, well, 4 years ago I had so many entities. It was so harsh. I was having such a difficult time. And I was just being, beleaguered with these entities. And I learned a banishment command. And once I said the banishment command, they were gone instantly, never to return. Well, what happened there? What happened there? What was taken away from that individual? What was taken away was the opportunity to expand levels of grace inside the person's mind, to expand the forgiveness, to expand the tolerance, to expand the strength, to expand and understand what is happening within that person's Kundalini equation. Entities have a job to do, and guess what? The Shakti allows the entities to come in. She can very easily stop any entity from coming in contact with you at all. And there are many people that have the Kundalini that have never had entity contact at all. But when you are allowed to have the entity contact, it's not there just to be a torture. It's not there to be, it's there to learn from. It's there to evolve with. You always run away from pain. We always run away from hard work. And so we run away from these things instead of learning how to take the information, even if it's coated in levels of pain or irritation or education, painful education, tough love, so to speak. Shakti allows us to have interactions with entities for a reason, not so that we can banish it. But maybe she does for some people. It's not a cookie cutter type of deal. It's not the same way for each person. Maybe this individual needed to learn a banishment so that he could have a greater level of self-validation during his part of the process. But from a generalized standpoint, this is not something that I would teach. I've had entity contact all my life. And I know that it's a very powerful skill set to be able to not focus on them, to be able to split view, to be able to tolerate, to be able to function, even though you are being beleaguered with inner voices, shouting and screaming and cussing at you, doing all manner of inappropriate things inside your mind. And I can sit there and talk to you about this, and I can describe it to you, but it's not the same as having it actually happen in your mind. It can be extremely devastating to your sense of well-being. Extremely. I remember a few years ago, there was one certain kind of entity would be coming to me, and I'd be laying in bed, and all of a sudden I'd hear on the wall. Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? Did you hear that? Are you there, Amelia? Oh, she may have got bumped off. No, she should be there. Anyway, I'd hear a pounding on the wall. Atlanta Seeker, thank you for coming to my rescue there. I don't know what's happening to Amelia. I don't think she's here anymore. Maybe she is. I would hear this pounding on the wall. One pound, basically, like that. And thank you, Alexi. So And I intuitively knew, Centaur has dropped. I intuitively knew that an entity was approaching. Okay, and so I would kind of I prepare myself for that contact, and wham! About 2 or 3 seconds afterward, that I would feel that entity in the room, and and I would feel what it was trying to do or how it was trying to manipulate some sort of a certain situation and environment, whatever. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And I learned to not be so afraid. I learned to go, oh, here it comes. Here it comes. And you begin to be able, after a few times with this, after, for me, a long time, but after a while with this, you learn to be able to not be afraid, to kind of go, oh, okay, that's this. All right, I can deal with this. Okay. And you learn how to do this. And this is why it's so important, I think, for people to begin to harvest the knowledge and the reference point and the material that you get from difficult teachings within the Kundalini. The entity phase is an exceptionally difficult period because it blows to shreds this idea that the things that exist are only there for the five senses. That there are no senses beyond the five senses, and because physics is based upon the five senses, unless you can replicate it, within the physical environment, then it does not exist, and you can't replicate entities in the physical environment. Hello, everyone. And so when you're interacting with these forces, these consciousness, these lower consciousness, typically, it shreds your idea of reality. And it puts you into and you get this abandonment thing because you feel like your reality has abandoned you. But it hasn't. It's expanded itself upon you. And it's just, the ego takes a real hit because the ego has found complacency and validation and happiness and comfort in being able to expect that A plus B is going to equal C. Now, A plus B equals, some gaseous form of consciousness coming in and trying to envelop itself around you. And, oh my God, that's not C anymore. So it's very important, I think, for people to understand that you don't want to have this banishment command. Unless Shakti wants you to. And I think the Shakti did want that gentleman to be able to exhibit some level of control, maybe to keep him out of the psych ward. A lot of people go into the psych ward when they have the entities because the MDs diagnose that as schizophrenia. And they diagnose bliss as bipolar syndrome. So, they're kind of like way off base. But that is the world that we live in right here. And so to practice the noble behaviors, to practice those noble behaviors is to practice forgiveness too, and gratitude for the excellent ERs that we do have for things like car accidents and broken bones and lacerations and whatnot, and and give the grace of gratitude wherever you can, but also give that grace of gratitude with the understanding that reality is wide open for you Kundalini people, and for you that are exploring the Kundalini. Reality is wide open. And as you engage the Kundalini and as the Kundalini engages you, that reality will expand exponentially. You'll go into dimensions that you never would have even believed were real, like the dimension where shape has consciousness. This is the geometric zone where the sacred geometry has consciousness. And I'm hearing people here, so I think Amelia is back. Oh, look at her. She is back. She's giving us heavy breathing on the radio show. Hi, Amelia.
Just when you said
Hi, Amelia. Amelia's being an entity.
I suggest that you can hear my breath. My God.
I am Amelia, the entity, and I am not your father. Was that a good Darth Vader? I hope. I'm always hoping.
Excellent.
It's good. The kindergartners that I did that for liked it anyway. And let's see, Atlanta Seeker is asking a question. She says, Chrism, did you find that fasting made it easier to go out of the body? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, I like fasting. Don't get me wrong. I think fasting is good. A good 3-day fast is a really good thing for the body. However, fasting in itself is a substantial control that is put on the ego, for sure, and also on the desires to eat. I'll respond to that Atlanta Seeker in a second here. She's talking about Star Wars. Fasting does not engender a greater ability to go out of body. Now, you can by not eating before you go to sleep at night, you can have a conscious OBE, perhaps a little bit easier. But as long as you're not starving yourself, and you're feeling these hunger pangs. Fasting, I think, is recommended before you take ayahuasca or anything like that. But fasting just for the OB experience, I've never had to do that. I could go OBE in the middle of the day, and actually that is the better time to go out of body is in the middle of the afternoon. Like, say, if you have a day off and you want to go out of body, just go to take a little brief nap at 1 o'clock, and that's when you should try your out of body work. Not during sleep, because sleep is sleep, and especially if you have food, well, you're digesting food, but you're also eliminating things from the body that you've collected during the day. You're going deep into the theta realm, and the theta sleep is a detoxing realm as well. So you've got the theta, you've got the beta consciousness, which is actually sleeping at the time, but you have the alpha state, which is where you'll be able to do a lot of the OBE stuff. But as you're going into delta and theta states, brainwave states, that's going to interrupt that, and you'll unless you're really planting some good strong dream seeds, you'll have a harder time going out of body during the evening time. And so I would say fasting does not make it easier. It can make it a little bit harder. Be okay with just as you eat. Now, she also says that actually I think Star Wars might have been about Kundalini, the Force. Well, yeah, I can see where George Lucas would have, the Force, and that's just like, I am so tied into the Force that I can feel a planet exploding. Yeah. I mean, that would be all about the Kundalini for sure. But the dark side of the Kundalini is not necessarily the way that Darth Vader would have it, interpreted it.
Chat room, stop encouraging him, please.
I'm going to do an entire program as Darth Vader. Darth Vader on the Kundalini.
I have a question that I need to ask you. Are we finished? Can I? Because it's moving on. Yeah, somebody asked on the group, and it was, could you talk about vertigo and Kundalini?
The movie? Kidding.
No.
Kidding. Vertigo and the Kundalini. Yeah, well, because Kunalini, Kundalini, certain areas of the Kundalini, the transformation, when she's starting to work on specific body areas, like shoulders, like knees, like wrists and finger joints and things like that, she can bring in levels of vertigo or dizziness that is tremendous. You will not be able to drive a car for a certain amount of time, because if you turn your head on the neck in a certain position, you'll be whelmed with, and that can turn into a very dangerous scenario. And you just need to start taking public transportation to your job or walking if you can. It doesn't always last for a long time unless you're resisting it. And if you're resisting it, well, then, of course, it's going to last longer. And this can also accompany some fairly tumultuous levels of Kundalini where, your father dies or your mother dies or your pet dies and you're in the middle of the transformation zone and, oh, my God, you go into such heavy levels of grief. Such heavy levels of grief, expanded levels of grief, which in many ways will bring on more Kundalini activity upon you. And I've had this happen to a student of mine years ago, and the guy couldn't turn his head without having huge levels of dizziness while he was driving. So you can't make lane changes. And so I counseled him not to drive, and eventually it went away for him. But same thing with vertigo. You don't want to go into high places and stand on the edge and look over. Not a good plan. So if you're having vertigo, stay away from the edge. If you're even on the edge of a curb, because even just like a 6-inch height, you can get vertigo from that as well. So be very careful with that. Be very astute. And do not test yourself in those ways if that testing is going to harm you. I don't want you to fall, and I don't want you to fall in front, in traffic or anything like that. And just allow that stage of the Kundalini to pass, and it will. And basically surrender to what she's giving you for that time. Over.
Okay, thank you, Chrism. There's one more. Do we have time for one more?
Yes.
Okay, so are there circumstances where you would recommend an entity extraction?
Yes. Yeah, matter of fact, I'll be going to John of Gods in mid-January. If I can ever get this visa thing worked out, they make it so hard. Just for that very purpose, for that very same purpose, a suggestion from his own Kundalini to go to John of Gods, and since I've been there 3 times now, it should be fairly easy for me to help him, down there. There are times, the times when the entities have so infused the body that they're occluding your sight, changing the direction of your eyes so that you can't see straight ahead, or that they've taken over your emotional body and your mental body so much that you're in the levels of psychosis, which would take you straight to the psych ward. There are plenty of times when, certainly in the West, when ego infestation needs to be manually extracted. And so, I can see plenty of opportunities for manual extraction of ego, or not of ego, of entities. People that are addicted to substances like alcohol or marijuana or things of that nature, where the entities have programmed the person to such a high degree that person can't stop that addiction, cannot do that. Or sex addiction is like that too. The entity is so attached to the individual they cannot stop having sex in a certain way. And the same thing happens with a serial killer. A serial killer will have an ego infestation, and they will do what that entity tells them to do. No matter what. And that entity, if it's a corruptive entity, which most of them are, will say, yeah, okay, I want you to dress up like Joker and the Batman, and I want you to get that machine gun. I want you to take that into the theater and just start blowing the shit out of everybody there. It'll feel so good. You'll love it. There's plenty of opportunities for ego extraction, or not ego, but entity extraction. Yeah. Okay,
Chrism, thank you very much. No more questions, but I would like to give the place.
Oh, we do have a question. It looks like we have a question on a caller here, 321-419. I'm going to go there right now. Hello, caller. You have a question?
Chrism, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Is this Jamie?
Me.
Hey,
yeah,
Jamie.
how are you?
Hey, happy holidays to you.
Thank you. Same to you. Yeah, I've got a question. I was wondering. I mean, I'm familiar with the nausea and the vertigo and all kinds of things, and you just kind of hold it steady, and it passes. You know, especially if you keep your consciousness where it belongs. You know. Lately, I have been, and this is so unusual for me. Out of energy. Painful body, like it's 100 million pounds. I can't seem to do anything that, I don't know, I'm just dragging, and I don't know. Is that a Kundalini?
What kind of spiritual practice are you doing, Jeannie?
Well, not enough. I'm sure that.
What are you doing? Be specific. What are you doing? Are you doing the 5 Tibetans?
Well, my body can't do them very much right now because something happened to my knee, and I was almost crippled. I think that kind of threw me into a state of, because I'm so used to doing whatever I want all the time.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Not necessarily a Kundalini development, my dear. Not necessarily so. I would take a break maybe for a little bit. Are you drinking caffeine?
Well, I was off caffeine for a while, and I started back, and I thought about that today, too.
Have you been drinking alcohol at all?
I haven't been drinking alcohol that much.
What's that much mean?
Well, I mean, I drank some today, but I haven't drank any in about a week and a half. I don't drink that much alcohol.
You're either pregnant or you're not, right? So here's the thing: you stop those two things. You know because you're. It sounds like you're having adrenal burnout too, and so you stop the coffee, you stop the alcohol, and do you smoke?
No.
I know. I'm just asking. I'm just asking.
I know. No, I do not.
I'm talking about tobacco. I'm talking about tobacco smoke.
Smoke at all? No.
No. Okay. Good. How's your sleep?
Oh, I sleep like I sleep great. I want to sleep all the time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to suggest that you get out into that beautiful, beautiful Floridian sunshine, and that you get into like a somewhat of a wilderness area where there are not any like crocodiles or pythons or alligators that would take an interest in you. And I would suggest that you do a meditation out there, and you breathe deeply through your nose. And you allow, what you're doing is you're prana feeding. You're feeding on the tremendous levels of life force prana that are present in the state of Florida. And you begin to really, really bring that into your system. Doesn't mean that you have to be out in the middle of the sun. Although I must say, Jeannie, if you can do it at dawn, it is best. 5.
Okay. What about at the beach? Is that not...
be at the beach. Be at the beach at dawn. And just do some breathing exercises where you inhale through your nose sharply and you raise your arms and hands up to the sky at the same time. And then you let them down, and then you breathe sharply, and then your arms are up, and then you let them down. This is a form of Qigong, and this will bring a lot more energy into your body. Can you do that?
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
All right, my dear. I'm going to have to go. I've only got 90 seconds left, and I want to say thank you, Jeannie, for asking your question. I want to wish everybody a very, very happy holiday season. I want to say thank you to Santara and Elizabeth Dalton Gonzalez and everybody, Atlanta Seeker and Michelle and David and everybody who has joined the show today, Rosemary and Joey. Thank you both for speaking today. And have a happy holiday. And she's going to cut me off quick. I'm going to end it the way I started as much as I can.